Yes, episode 4 of the Convo with Revive. Edgar, how are you feeling, man? How's your week?
Welcome, Justino. It has been good. This week has been good. Today was awesome. I didn't get to enjoy much of the weather, but I know that you have been enjoying this 80 plus degree weather. So
Let's not say enjoying so much. Let's say I've been a part of it. Not enjoying it. I've been a part of it, but yeah, man, it's been pleasant to say the least. I think when I came here, it was still winter, and I had to endure some really bad times. But the Lord has blessed us with 80-degree weather for the first time this year. I feel good, man.
it was beautiful.
It was beautiful, bro. I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like every time, I don't know, feeling like going from winter to spring and summer, it's so different. I don't know what it is. I can't really explain it. I think people try to say like, seasonal depression and stuff like that. And I never thought it was real until I went through it myself. I was feeling really weird, really bad, really down. And then the sun just came out of nowhere one day and I was like, things are better.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about the sun. We don't get to see the sun during the winter as much.
Not at all.
And
man.
all of a sudden, spring comes around and we have had some sunny
We
days.
had some really sunny
Which it kind of makes
days.
you happy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you look outside and you're like, wow, it's so bright.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes a difference on your day.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think just, man, I can't tell you how depressing it was because where I live, right? I live the apartments and stuff like that. So for me, when I look kind of across the street, I can see more so the park-ish view. There's a good view there. I could say that. And you can see trees there. Man, it was so depressing looking at those trees over the winter. And I don't know, it just made my soul feel a little sad just seeing it, right? Nothing on it, just dry, just nothingness on the leaves. But now you look at the ground and there's the grass. I mean, you go in the back, there's flowers. And I'm like, yo, this is beautiful. This is what God intended.
Yeah.
All summer, no winter. That's what God wanted. But it's all right, man.
But we're here.
We're here. We're here because Adam and Eve were here now. Man, for one of my classes, incarnational ministry in the city, amazing class. Our Professor Patricia, Professor Patty, one of the best professors I've had. One thing that we're learning in these coming chapters are sort of about kind of immersing ourselves into the communities, about relationships, right? I remember I shot you a message in the beginning of the week for a theme, right? And about relationships. When you think about relationships, let's start with the easy one. When you think about relationships, what comes to your mind?
A lot of things come to the mind, but, more people. So not just... You cannot have a relationship with yourself, right?
Yeah.
So definitely more people.
Right. It was really weird, man. When COVID started, right, I think everyone, including me, we were under the assumption that it was going to be really easy. School was going to be really easy. It was going to be all cool and stuff, right? But I think I undervalued face-to-face communication with people. And, man, I don't know. There's this huge component that's missing, right? And even now, right, we go to church. Church is great. We have service. But, there's not a lot we can do outside of service because we still want to keep, we want to keep our distance and things of that nature, not get anybody sick. People have families. Man, how has this been for you when it's come to just this past year and just moving away from really people?
Yeah, you missed that interaction with people. Although we kept our services online, but you cannot ache for that relationship, for being here in person, seeing each other, smiling. Just that interaction, that sense of community, fellowship among us. That is so important. But we kind of kept that going through the online for Revive, it was, was a challenging part. We tried to keep that fellowship or that sense of community online, which is it's a challenge to do it online.
It is.
When it comes to the personal, on the personal side, we need that relationship with other people. We do miss going out with other people still. We miss going out, having a date night or things like that with your significant other, or just hanging out with friends. You need that, and I think that I'm missing that right now.
And, man, it's so tough. I think there were a lot of people when COVID started, they fell into like a deep depression, because it was just like, and for me, I was always like, I was always kind of like the tough one, right? When it came to COVID, like, no, we need to stay away from people. Like, we need to ordain this stuff. But man, I'm starting to see more and more now. Every class I go to for school, it starts to get draining, right? Because all these classes where we're interacting and having great discussions, now it's just come down to just the professor speaking to us just saying, okay, and keeping our cameras off, not looking at each other. Man, it's one of the worst things. And more than that, when it's come to church, I miss people. I miss people in the church, man. And I think for most of us, right, and this kind of leads into my first question, right, which is, how can we cultivate relationships within the church? Because I know for me personally, man, I don't think I appreciated the friendships of church people or the fellowship. I can truly say I didn't appreciate it enough. But how do you think we can do that? How do you think we can go about cultivating relationships within the church?
Oh yeah, one of the things is to be able to create a space, an intentional type of time where we come together and just talk to each other, just learn from each other. And just to catch up, it could be something as, for example, what we do on Saturday mornings with coffee and conversations. Just to have that space intentional for us to just talk to each other. Or it could be, a social activity, whether it's here at church or whether it's going out. I know that is limited right now. But a couple of weeks ago, we had the youth rally, and a couple of our young adults, they just hang out. Saturday night, they played board games. We had pizza, and it was a good time to just cultivate that those relationships among us.
And we need that. You definitely need that. And it's weird, man. I saw this quote. I'm not going to say it right, but I know it's just pretty much just saying that you need these friendships and things like that to survive. And I never knew that was real until there was COVID. And, man, COVID hit, and now there's no hanging out with people. Now it's staying inside. Now it's all that. Bro, it's like it sucks, man. There's no other word I can say better than that, but it really sucks, and it's because growing up in the church, it's one of those things where I couldn't wait to get out, like, which is so weird, right? Because, like, why am I studying as a pastor if I can't wait to get out, bro? It's because my mom, if you're watching this, forgive me, but this is very true what I'm going to say. Man, after church, my mother was the most talkative person ever. Like, nobody can stop my mother from talking to everyone. And it was before I had a car. So it was like, dude, we used to stay after church for at least 30 more minutes because my mom just loved talking to people, right? But you would see her reaction, and she would be happy. And I was just like, why do you get so happy speaking to people in church? I don't even like these people like that. Right? And then, man, when COVID comes, I wish I spent an hour or two sitting with those people from the church and talking to them. But now we don't have that.
Right.
And now we don't have that.
But if you remember being here, the times that you're being here preaching, and we have our services have ended a little bit later, and you expect everybody to leave, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason they kind of like hang around and they just try to connect with people because, like you said, we need that time.
Yeah,
we miss
do.
people. We need that interaction, and that is part of being a church, part of us coming together as a church, just to have those relationships.
Yeah. So yeah, Edgar, there's this quote, and I'm sure you definitely heard the quote where it says, the quote is essentially, if your church just ceased today, right? If the church just stopped today for whatever the reason is, would the people in the community even know? I think one thing that I'm learning to answer in that is no, and I think that most of the time, right, when it comes to church, I think there's, I don't know, I think there's this sort of lack of intentionality when it comes to the community. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that if the church will stop existing here in the community wouldn't notice.
They would just
Everything will
go.
keep going the same way.
Yeah.
One of the things of being a healthy church, I think one of the component is that to be also involved in the community.
Yeah.
And from time to time or all the time, we cannot shift our focus in a different direction. And we, everything that we do, yes, we have a goal of, sharing the word of God.
Yeah.
But what about those relationships that we need to build?
Yeah.
What about that relationship with the community that we need to build? I think it has to be a balance in doing evangelism, doing your ministries, outreach, enrich, and also community. Because we talk about outreach and we'll go feed the homeless, right?
Yeah.
And we'll do our part, check mark, right?
Yeah, and that's it.
It becomes one activity. But to be engaged with the community, it's to build a relationship. It's long term.
Right.
So when you stop existing as a church here, they'll notice it. They'll be like, man, they're gone. What happened? We miss those people. We miss those relationships that we have with them.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, even when it comes to homeless ministries, right, it's so crazy. I never thought about this. There's this woman who she feeds homeless people, right, and she does it on Twitter. People donate stuff, and she goes out and feeds the homeless. I saw the video, right, first time ever I saw it. The lady goes and she asks this person, what do you want, right? And the homeless person says, whatever, right? And it's so crazy. I never thought about this. When it comes to especially homeless ministries, they feel like they don't have a choice, especially people who are in power. They feel like they do not have a choice, right? So all their life, it's always begging, right? So it's always, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have the? They ask for money. They ask for food and stuff like that because they feel like they have no other choice.
Right.
So when the woman presented to them, I think she had donuts and stuff like that, and then it was like a water and a Gatorade maybe, and then he was just confused. The man was like, "Well, I didn't know I had a choice," and that's really how a lot of people feel in our communities, especially in the communities that aren't too lavish or too, don't have a lot of money. They feel like they do not have a choice. And I think that's where the church needs to sort of step in and provide them with enough love and enough.
Right.
Because I think this whole thing of ministry, man, I think it's really difficult when you have a goal of baptizing people in a community, and yet that community has no idea what your name is.
Right. And, you mentioned a key part, their needs, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we kind of assume the community's need, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing that we say is like, well, they need Jesus.
Yeah.
And I do agree with that.
Right.
We all need Jesus, right? And we need to share that love. But what about in the community? How many people right now that everything is online, right? A lot of the places, as you know, even going to the motor vehicle, everything's online.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people in our community that are not computer savvy.
Right.
That's a need.
Right.
Can we help with that need? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, and there are other needs too. You know, a lot of kids now going as a hybrid
Hybrid program
module, and they need help too, because sometimes the parents are not computer savvy.
Yeah.
And there's some other needs too.
Sometimes they need computers.
Yes.
And it's like, what are we doing? We're going to their house and saying, do you want to read the Spirit of Prophecy? And it's like, what is that going to do for my current need?
Because it's not only about feeding them.
Yeah.
It's about, breaking bread with them. Just learning about them. Right. Trying to listen, understand.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like what Jesus did when he came.
And it's, man, Jesus' ministry is so different than what the church's ministry, even the apostles. I mean, their ministry is so different from our needs, man. Like they took all they had and gave it and shared it with one another. I mean, you don't see that. That is community. That's relationship. That's being in community and communal with other people. When you have all that you have and you're willing to share it with other people and just be there for people. I think, man, Jesus emphasized, right? And that's why back then, man, they had all these nicknames for Jesus, right? The one who loves sinners, and he hangs around drunkards and stuff like that, right? And it was because Jesus was always around people. Jesus spent so much time in the presence of others. Jesus spent so much time just loving and cultivating these relationships, right? And not only was he, like you said, feeding them, but he was literally sitting with them. And I think the church today, we as the church today, right, we don't do that. We want to give somebody something, and then we don't tell them the benefits of it. We don't sit with them and see what's it going to reap for them. We just kind of throw it at them, and we're like, look, if you get it, you get it, right?
But, you know, we give something out to the community, right? When we do, and it's kind of like a bait and switch kind of idea.
Yeah.
Because here I am, I have this, but hey, we offer Bible studies, or hey, we have service, come to church.
Yeah.
And we really haven't, we haven't really sat down with that person or know about them. We don't even know their name.
We don't.
And sometimes all it takes is just like meeting that need and praying with them.
Yeah.
And just sharing, Jesus came and shared love.
Yeah.
It all sums it out to love.
Absolutely. And it's, man, when I see it, right, and this kind of goes to the next point, actually, about, loving our neighbors, right, and what it means to love our neighbors. Man, the way I see it, right, we all have this, I guess, common thing that we need, right, which is Jesus. And we understand that. Even Jesus understood that everyone needed a good relationship with God. I think that's the main reason why Jesus came, also to save us from our sins, duh. But I think the most important thing, right, was because there was this idea of a mean God, like a terror God who was always so angry and vile and vicious with his people. And then Jesus comes and he's like, the Father and I are one. And then Jesus is grace and mercy and love and everything he touches. It's almost beautiful. Like it's so graceful. And then Jesus is like, I and the Father are one. Jesus is like, look, whatever you think God is, this angry, vindictive God, that's not him. Look at me, see my character. I and the Father are one. But man, people love Jesus because that was his character. But not only was he teaching people and understood that people need God, but Jesus also understood people need other stuff too. People need these, we don't want to say earthly things, but people need things for right now, right? Because we keep talking about this eternal and in this, but there are people who are suffering right now, right? And I don't know, man. How's that make you feel, man? Getting a little passionate here, my bad.
Yes. I know that, when we really listen and focus on what really matters, we're able to touch those people.
Absolutely, man.
You know, we talked about last Friday at Let's Talk. We talked about, you know, sharing, helping. And one of the things that it was mentioned on our conversation is, you know, Jesus says, what you do to others, you do to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, that love that God gives us, that Jesus gives us, that he shared when he was here, he was a great example to all of us.
Absolutely.
I think that that's where we need to be at. We need to, you know, share that love. And as we do to others, we're doing to him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And man, this is crazy. But the way I see it, right, when I think about God calling us in proximity with one another, right, God, oh man, this is tough right here, right? But God's like, I think the disciples were like, Jesus, well, how will people know we're your people? Like, how will we separate ourselves from the pack? How will we separate ourselves from the pagan worshipers? How will people know we are Jesus believers? He's like, love one another, right? And I think the first thing that they thought about was just like, him? And it's just like, dude, that's so hard to do, man. That's so hard to. Jesus is a master genius in that sense, right? Because I think for Jesus is like, okay, if you want to follow me, not only do you have to pick up your cross every day and follow me, but for people to know that you're a Christ believer, love one another. And Jesus is like, do the hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
Jesus is not like, he's not like, man, I want you to run 50 miles. I want you to do this. Jesus is like, love one another.
Yeah.
And I think they were like, we rather run 50 miles.
Yeah.
Man. And yeah, and I don't know, man, but I think for me, and I'll kind of give my just point of this, you know, I think for me, when it comes to loving another person, it's been difficult for me because I was never able to sort of love myself, or I didn't know how to love myself, right? So when Jesus says, you know, love one another, not only as I have loved you, but also as you love yourself, you need to learn how to love yourself, because there's no way I can love you if I don't love who I am first. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, because they don't know who they are. They don't know who God is. There goes two big problems already. Now you don't know how to love yourself, and you don't know the main source of love, right? So then it's a struggle to be in community with people. It's a struggle to be in proximity. It's a struggle to love my neighbor if I have no idea who God is, and two, if I don't love myself. How do you feel about that?
Wow, that is
tough.
That is tough.
It's
yeah,
tough, right?
Because you touch a couple different areas there. They all interlink to something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because love comes from God. How can I give love to others, right? Loving myself, that having that self-love. How can I do that? And just loving the neighbor, everything is connected. At the end of the day, everything's connected back to God. It is a tough one to love somebody that had different views than you.
Yeah, preach, Pastor.
And and nowadays it seems like freedom of speech has gone a different level right now. It's kind of like everybody has an opinion. Everybody's very vocal about it.
Everybody.
And you're like trying to do, what would Jesus do?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And trying to do your best to love everybody. It is tough to do that. It's also tough to love yourself when you don't know who you are.
Yeah, man.
Or we talked about that last week, about purpose and goals and things like that. But everything goes back to
the source.
Yeah. The source of love is
God.
And how can we tap into that source? by having a relationship with him. And yeah, but you could tell me, Edgar, I have a relationship with God, but I still can't get along with my neighbor.
It's just that. Then you don't have a relationship with God. Like dude. I think even John is like, if you don't love one another, you don't know God.
No, you don't know God. And you mentioned two things. Love thy neighbor,
Right.
and carry my cross, right? But to carry my cross, Jesus says you had to deny yourself.
Come on.
And in order for you to, you see, I'm preaching, bro.
Come on.
So in order to,
job.
in order to deny yourself, you had to let Jesus, in you, to be able for him to manifest that love.
Yeah, dude. Gotta pound that. That's a word. Come on, dude. Like, I'm gonna take that sermon and I'm gonna say it to mine. That's it. That's the word right there, man. And it's tough, man, because it's like one thing I'm learning is to love myself, right? And I know a lot of people must struggle with that, but there are insecurities. Everyone has them. But one thing I've learned, right, and this is sort of how I've learned how to cultivate my relationship with God, right? This is one thing that I always put in my head. I always try to remember. It's this. It's not that God doesn't love me, but it's that I don't love myself enough to let God love on me. And it's like, dude, quote that. Dude, write that, stamp that. That's mine, bro. That's mine. But it's like, man, how can God fully love me and fully pour out his blessing, his mercy, his grace, if I'm not allowing him to do that because I don't love myself? And I think that's where some of our relationships with God fail. It's not because, and here's the thing, God will never fail, ever. It's biblical. That's his word. I will never fail. Love never fails. God won't ever fail us. But it's that thing where we look at ourselves and we don't like ourselves and we don't have a good relationship with other people, and then we look inside and then we're like, we don't love us. I don't love who I am. And then God is trying to, man, I don't know, man. David is over here, man. In his Psalms, David, like, the way he's speaking about God and the way God wants to love us is just like, there's a river waiting to just wash over us with love and grace. God's like, I want to do that for you, but you won't ever be able to fully experience it until you learn to love yourself. But I'm like, man, and here goes my question. I was like, I got excited, man. I got excited, man. I got excited. How can we cultivate a good relationship with God?
First thing, you have to be intentional.
Yeah.
I think that you have to set that time for him. People set time for other things, right?
Yeah. Woo, come on.
Sometimes very hard to set time, right? So I was talking to somebody today, a life coach, right? And we were talking about that. One of the goals for me was to set time.
Yeah.
Set time to exercise. Set time to go to sleep early.
Right.
So important. If we set time for other things in our life, why can't we set time for God?
For God. Ooh, bro. Yeah.
And it's not, and don't tell me, well, I talk to God throughout my day. That is good, but you need quality time with him.
Yeah.
When you are in a relationship with a person, with your significant other, you have a girlfriend, or when you're trying to, learn or just trying to know somebody else better.
Come on, marriage counselor.
You spend time, right?
Yeah.
You spend time.
Quality time.
And it's intentional.
Yeah.
So I remember back on the days when I was dating, I was dating Sandra, and we didn't have cell phones back then, so I'm not aging myself here, but
100.
Oh, come on. Come on. So, we used to spend so much time on the phone.
Yeah.
And we had seen it. We have just seen each other.
Yeah.
And we're getting home to talk to each other and just spending more time on the phone, just talking.
Yeah.
That was quality time.
Right.
The same thing has to happen with God. We need that time to go deep in His Word, and we need time to pray.
Yeah.
We need time to talk to Him,
Yeah.
and He will talk to us back.
Oh yeah.
You
Of
know,
course.
we might not see it right away, but He's there. He's listening.
Of course.
He's waiting for the same way that you say, like we just need that relationship with other people. He's waiting for us to have that relationship with Him.
Absolutely. Dude, it's man, like you said, right? Quality. That's why there's always that whole thing where it's quantity versus quality, right? You'll take quality over quantity any day, right? For me, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of preachers, right? And there's a lot of stuff like that. The way I prepare my sermons, it's a bit different than most people would. I won't share my secrets online yet. You got to pay for that. Now,
We'll copyright those.
like, for me, one thing I've learned, right, is that I have a lot of other things going on in a day, but I like to separate some time to prepare for my sermons, right? And then I hear certain preachers, they're like, I do my sermon preparation about 10 hours out of the week. Those are like elite. Like those are like upper echelon. They've been preaching for years. They could do that. Some guys are like, I do mine 20, 25, maybe 30 hours a week. I'm preparing a sermon. That's a full-time job right there, right? For me, one thing I notice is that if I go over a certain amount of hours, I'm like, oh man, I'm not enjoying it. When I'm doing that work, when I'm reading the word, when I'm exegeting, there's a joy in that. Like I'm enjoying asking questions, looking, but when it starts to get worrisome and heavysome and laborsome, like I'm not enjoying it. And God knows that, right? And here's the thing, man. I think most of the time we think, right? We think we're fooling God, but we're not. God sees our heart, and God's like, why are you doing that if you don't enjoy it, right? And that, man, even with our prayer life and devotional, some people are like, just like, what time should I wake up to do devotional? I'm like, hey, look, whatever time you can spend quality time with God, do it. Some people are like, I wake up at 5, 6. I was doing that at first, right? And then I realized certain times throughout the day I would get tired, right? And it's because the time I wake up, I want to be that pastor or that guy who wakes up at like 4 a.m, spends 3 hours in his word. But I know that's quantity. That's just, I want there to be the numbers. But I know if I can get an hour or two where I'm praying, where I'm worshiping, where I'm reading the word, and it's so crazy, man, because you feel when it's quality. Like it's almost like getting a good device versus a bad device.
Yeah.
Right?
It's more like I have to do it,
Yeah,
versus I really want to do it because it makes me feel great.
Right.
And there's a thin line on that. Like you say, yeah, we know that we have to do it.
Yeah.
It's a matter of how we do it.
Right.
Because if we do it like that, then we fall into the scenario of like, yeah, I'm just doing it. And, I spend 2 hours every day from 5 to 7. But like you say, do I enjoy it?
Right.
Probably you enjoyed it your first 2 weeks of doing it.
But after a while.
And then it just became, became the same. I think that you have to mix it up.
Yeah, of course.
As with any relationship, you have to do other stuff in order to maintain that relationship with God. The first is going to be hard, but once you have that we could say that habit.
Yeah.
You build that already. You have it with you. It's part of your lifestyle. It's part of what you do. It's a matter of how you're going to divide that during the day.
Of course.
Whether you're going to spend half an hour with him in the morning or you're going to spend a full hour and you're gonna spend some time in the evening
Yeah.
and nighttime with
Yeah.
him.
And one thing I learned, man, it's just like, man, God is so good. God is like, whenever you can devote time, and I get it, the first thing should always be God.
Yeah.
And I truly, and I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. But there's times I wake up and God's not the first thing on my mind. And of course, throughout the day, I'm like, oh man, why? Like, why didn't I wake up and pray? Why didn't I get on my knees and talk to God? But then there's that time where God is just like, I just want to hang out with you.
Right.
God's like, look, I just want to hang out with you. I want to talk to you. I want to know about your day. It's crazy, man. Like, can you imagine God is literally, there's a war going on around us, and God is like always sending angels to protect us. And then God's like, I just want to know about your day. Like, you see my day, right? But it's so beautiful because it's like when we're speaking and we get those things out in the open, there's so much liberation. And God's just like, I want to spend time with you.
And we see God as, we see God in different ways, right?
Yeah.
But one of the ways that we should see God is as our friend.
Yeah. Woo.
You know, and I'll put the plug.
Yeah.
But he's a real friend. You know?
Yeah.
He's there when you need him. He doesn't leave your side. And like you say, you want just somebody just to hang out. And some people might not like that term of like, oh, you're gonna hang out with Jesus.
Yeah.
We hang out with Jesus. There's nothing wrong with
There's
that.
nothing wrong with it, dude.
You know, we should be happy that we hang out with that. He wants to hang out with us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the best thing, man. Just he give us love. We should give that love back to him.
Absolutely. And quality, bro. I love that, man. Quality time. Like, dude, the gym, right? Man, I see these, like, now that I'm going to the gym, I like watching these YouTube videos, right? And I'm like, I'm dumbfounded because I'm just like, there's no way I'm in the gym for 3 hours working out. And it's like, what work, dude? And it's insane because it's just like, I write my workouts down, right? I go to the gym, do it. And I'm like, there's some days where I do it in 45 minutes, 35 minutes, an hour, right? Max I do it is an hour, right? Because by then I've done my reps, all that stuff. Man, these guys are in the gym for 3 hours on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you have all these workouts, right? But for them, that's quality time.
Right.
But then there's me, right, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend an hour max because I know for me, I'm like, okay, in an hour, I need to get a quality hour. That means my phone is away from me. That means I put on my earphones, just work out. I get in my quality time, right? Because if I'm there for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but I've only done, say, half of my workout, and I leave, what have I accomplished? But now if I get in an hour where it's a quality hour where I do my stuff and I do a little more than that, that's quality right there. And that's what most of those guys who work out, man, they're in the gym for 3+ hours. They're getting all their quality time, right? And maybe some of them, they're doing way more than they should be, right?
Right.
But for me, if I could crank out 1 hour, quality hour, that's good. God's like, yo, you don't need to, you want to stay here for 7, 8 hours. And he knows when we're exhausted. He knows when we don't want to. And at that time, God's like, I don't know, man, because I don't want to speak for God, right? But it's just like, I would imagine a loving God is like, look, I don't want to force you in this with me, right? If you don't want to, I'm not going to force you to do something that you don't want to do.
Yeah. When we come to God, we're worshiping him.
Yeah.
Right? And we're worshiping him from our heart. And if, like you say, if our heart at that moment says, I'm not 100% here right now.
He knows that.
He knows that. Just like setting that moment, that being intentional to just spend the time, whether it's a short amount of time or it's a long amount of time, is the fact is that you're spending it with God.
That quality time, man. That time where it's just, it's quality, right? Man. My dad, and this is the last thing I'll say, man. Man, these time is going by quick, man. Last thing I'll say, man. My father, Man, I remember when he used to work these crazy hours, like these long hours at work and stuff. And you know, I'd barely get to hang out with him. One, because I was also doing baseball and stuff like that in high school. So it was like I wasn't home. So I was rarely around my parents. Like barely any time I was spent with my parents. But man, I remember whenever we get that time, an hour, 2 hours, we'd laugh, we joke. Even my sisters, we'd laugh, we joke, we'd have fun, right? And then for me, I used to always think I want more hours like this, right? Mm-hmm. But then we get those longer hours, right? And now my dad, his job's way more flexible now. Praise God. My father, my mom, man, now it's almost like you get those long hours. And you're just like, some hours they're asleep, some hours they're doing other stuff. But that quality time, that's what matters. And I'm starting to realize, man, it's like you don't need 9 hours. You don't need 10, 15 hours. It's when you decide, I want to spend this quality time with my other. I want to spend this time with God. And like you said, man, He's our friend. Like that's so beautiful, man, that the creator of the universe would look at sinners like us and say, you're my friend. Man, that's love right there, man. Edgar, any last words, man, for episode number 4?
4. Yeah, man. If you haven't started spending that quality time with God, what's holding you back?
What's holding you back?
What's holding you back? We have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
We won't tell you spend an hour. If you can, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
You'll see the difference in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
Start with a couple minutes here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But quality time.
Yeah. And enjoy it.
Enjoy it. I think that's the key part.
Yeah.
Enjoying it. Enjoying being with Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a calming presence, right? Being in his presence. It's like all the worries are just like they're whatever, right? Because it's just you're in the presence of the Almighty, and you know that whatever happens here, you're protected.
Right. Mm-hmm. And if you wanna improve in your relationships with other people, we have to start from the foundation.
You got to, right?
From the foundation. He is the
I don't
he's the guy.
I don't want to preach, but I'll save it for another time. I'll save it for another time, right? But it's almost like the plugs, right? I think there was this thing I was doing right yesterday. I got like this new desk and stuff. It's great, right? There's more space. Praise God. I was connecting these plugs into the wall, right? Like sockets and stuff like that. And then as I was connecting it, right, like the plug was out, right? The plug was out. And I was just like, man, it's crazy how this one plug, right? Because it's like that thing that has like more connectors and stuff like that, right? I'm like, this one plug can charge my phone, turn on my TV, turn on a video game, all from this one plug. But this plug is not doing it by itself because without it, it's useless. I'm preaching.
He has to have a source, right?
Come on. There's a source that it goes to get the power. And if it doesn't have anything to connect it to, it's useless. It can't turn on anything. You can't connect anything to it because there's no power in it. But when it gets to the source, when it gets to the socket, there is. That's a sermon.
That is a sermon.
That was a secret sermon. That was free. I'm not going to give you the whole thing today.
But you know what? Today, something happened to me too. I was connecting something
Come on.
My USB to get power from, right? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, my screen says, your source doesn't have enough power. So if we are connected, if we had that beautiful relationship with God, we're going to have all the power from that source,
all
man.
The power.
All the power. It's not going to say you don't have power or you have limited power. It's like all your devices will be connected to one.
All the devices, man. And it's crazy because, dude, just thinking about it, man, most people, we don't realize that to function and to love and to have good relationships with other people, we need to be connected to the power source. Because if we're not, we can't turn on. We can't work and we won't function. So my last remark to you, viewer, get connected to the source. That's all. That's a really cool quote. But join us next week. Next week, man. We're always here, man. We're always here. We always bring you guys podcasts. And also make sure, if you have not yet, come by to 3631 Bosworth. We're here in Cleveland, Ohio, Revive Adventist Church. Join us for our coffee and conversation every Sabbath at 11 a.m. We want to see you here. We want to talk to you. We want to know your story. And we just want to love you as a community. God bless you. And we hope to see you next week on episode 5. We out
Coming on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Praise God.
Have a good one. Signing off.
Signing off. Sayonara. Woo!
Episode
4. That was really good. Yeah.
That was really good.